two dogs in a vet, and one says to the other one, "What are you doing here?" He said, "Well," he said, "I bit my master, and I'm afraid, it's execution time." He said, "Oh dear, sorry to hear that." So the other dog says, "Well, what happened to you?" He said, "My mistress was in the bath." He said, "And I jumped up and, had a bit of whoopee with her." He said, "Oh," I guess you're being done away with as well." He said, "Oh no," he said, "I had me paws clipped."
Yes, not a very good one.
Oh, yeah.
It should have been as mistress was getting out of the bath. I was in a hurry. I said, whilst in the bath. So I think you got to use your imagination. Well, no, perhaps not, But anyway, tonight we've got Ben Emlyn Jones.
Hello.
Ben.
Hello, Chris. Great to be back again. How are you?
Mustn't grumble, and I hope you're okay and fighting fit. And I'll tell you something. I think they're going up to Doncaster. It's an absolute riot up there, isn't it? It's the tourist industry. I think they're saying, come to Doncaster. It's a riot.
There's riots everywhere at the moment. Something going on. Yeah. I mean, I gather they are mostly peaceful protests, though. At least that's been used again. That trick has been used against us before, so I'm going to use it against them. They're mostly peaceful.
Most people are peaceful, and there's only a very small minority of government provocateurs that go there to start the problems.
Exactly. I mean, I think people are angry and understandably angry. But I think most people have the intelligence to realise that if you go and you attack a place of worship or you set fire to a hotel, it's not helping your cause. And most people understand that. Most people are calm, and they can channel their anger in a maybe a more positive and worthwhile way. I think most people have the intelligence to do that.
But, I agree with you.
I've seen the meme of like there's the skinheads, and then below that there's just a normal family, and it says at the top, it says the far right in 1980, and below it says the far right in 2024. So yeah,
precisely.
I could recognise some names. Hi, guy, Hatchy, and
let's have a quick shufty in chat.
South Coast Rich. Hey, how you doing?
We've got. Guess who gets the brownie points this week? It's Paul Green. And he was on at 6:50. Now that is bloody keen, isn't it?
He was there before I was. Yeah,
hour and 10 minutes.
Oh, I only just got in. But the reason it wasn't because I was just doing third rail radio. I was just like finishing off, like sharing all the links and stuff. And I looked at it and I said 5 minutes to go. Right, I thought I better go and join Chris on his channel. But I did manage to get third rail radio posted. So. I missed last week, you see, because I was on tour, so I couldn't do last week's third rail.
Well, let's do a plug. We've got to do a plug. So hang on. Let's your radio shows. So we do.
Yes, I will.
And we'll put some banners below. All right.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, thanks. I've worked hard on it today. Let me just put a link in there. There you go, mate. There's the link, so people go and listen to that. I mean, unfortunately, the bloody things made you set up they want you to set up a damn Spreaker account to listen, but I upload them to archive.org, and there's a link to archive.org, and in a couple of hours it'll be available there. You don't have to sign up to anything to listen to it there. So I must apologise for that. I'm thinking of dropping Spreaker because of this stupidity.
Have you thought of Rumble Studio? That's what I use for the.
I'm thinking of doing what you do and just doing all my radio stuff on like an alt text site, yeah.
It's a bit lumpy. I have to. I mean, StreamYard is smooth. I can put stuff along the bottom. I do so much more, and with and it might be lumpy because I'm an amateur at that, and I'm more experienced with StreamYard. But things like putting comments below the screen. I don't think you might be able to do it, but I can't do it on Rumble. Also, when you go off afterwards, we sometimes sit and have a chat afterwards after the show. Not with Rumble, you can't do that. It just goes boom straight off. Yeah. You sort of, Anyway, let's type. I'll type your now. What is it? And we'll shove it along the bottom. So what is it?
All right, it's third. There's a link just there, mate. It's just I put a link in the chat just now.
Hang on, I'll just go across. I've got you right. Panmo Radio Blogspot. Right, so hang on, I can't I was going to put it along the bottom, so
Oh, thanks.
So I can't really cut and paste that. I don't.
Oh,
I tell you that on here. So what I'll do is I'll tap something out, and if it's wrong, so it's HTTP.
Yeah. Or just put hpanwo.blogspot and hyphen radio.blogspot, and they'll find it. It'll be easy enough to find.
Right, a hospital reports against New World Order, and then what's that? Blogspot.
Hyphen.
Hyphen.
And then radio.
Hyphen. Radio. Yes.
.blogspot.com, I think it is. I mean, just put that in there, and people will find it. They'll be able to find it.
Now, how's that? Hang on. How's that? Is that right?
That's perfect.
We'll leave it up there so that we've something, because what happens? Oh, sod it! I've just bluntly be pencil. Better go and find another one. Open the drawer, that sort of thing. So we'll leave it there for a while.
Thanks, mate. Cheers. Thank you.
That's great. Now, well, we've got to help each other, scratch each other's back. And what days do they come on?
Well, Sundays, Thursdays, and Mondays. There's a new show. If you miss it, there's always a podcast. So you can always listen to it on the podcast. And the one I've just done is a podcast-only show anyway. So
I'm normally on Soapbox Radio on Sundays from 8 till God knows when, about 11 o'clock. I'm usually I'm often invited on as a guest on there. Sundays, I think we might be clashing there, mate. I think because I'm on 8 till 10. I think you are, aren't you?
Yeah, 8 p.m. Sunday night is Spanner night. That's the gas spanner. Now that's actually a different kind of show. It's not. It's a different subject. You see, it's not about weird stuff. It's actually about hospital portering. So that's a different show. That's on a different subject.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not completely obsessed with woo-woo stuff and conspiracies and paranormal stuff.
I understand.
I'm not complete. I do make a show about hospital porters every week. So
that's excellent, because what it is, what people can do if they miss yours or miss mine, it's always on there. They can always go onto it and watch it. I don't know about you. I find when I wake up next morning, my audience has over doubled because it's the Southern Hemisphere watching or listening.
Yeah, so you get listeners all over the world like me, which is great. Yeah, that's fantastic.
But anyway, we'll leave it up there. And now we got here. We got a baby with a. Oh, hang on, we've forgotten Hatchie Hatchie. Oh, and we've forgotten a cat on.
Hi, Hatchie.
So it's got cat. Hello, cat. And we didn't leave you out. So sorry about that, cat. And we've got Hatchie Hatchie.
Hi,
Hatchie. All respects, Ben. Baby with a laser. Hi, Chris and Ben.
Hi,
South Coast Rich. Good evening.
Hi, Rich. I know Rich.
To try to put the world to rights tonight. Yes, that's right. Now there's let's do the time warp.
What's a good name?
Hereditors get booked. And then we got Hatchie Hatchie. Plymouth is getting very lively as we speak. What is it? I
think they've gone for a hotel again.
Really?
They might have gone for a hotel. Yeah.
And then we've got camera. I always think of the Bucks Fizz tune, My Camera Never Lies. I used to like that one. Hello, everyone. I hope everyone is all good. So there we go. That's pretty good. Now, so they're going for a hotel. And
that's what probably is happening, yeah.
About Algent Provocateurs, I know that Richard D. Hall has said a little bit about that on one of his shows.
Yeah.
And the other one is I've had several witnesses. Do you remember when they had those anti-capitalist riots 10 plus years ago?
It was a while ago, but they had they used to go to the it was the G7 and things like that, and
that's right,
protest against the corporate state and things like that.
That's right. And hang on, you might as well put your link on there, mightn't we?
Oh, thank you.
Now the thing is that what happened is I've heard it from people who didn't know each other who was there, and they said that there was like a police cordon, and behind there was like a van with refreshments, and there's all these skinhead types all having their refreshments. The police move aside. There's all the press outside this shop. The agent provocateurs go along, smash bricks through the window, kick it, do it, give smash the windows in. They get click, 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 click at the press. They turn around, go through the police cordon, and go back to the refreshments. Job done. And it was so open. Yeah. So blatantly.
Well, they don't have to. They're not interested in fooling the people who are in the crowd. Their point is to make good TV pictures. Everyone will see it on telly, and it wouldn't be surprised if they're doing it this time. I mean, they did this. It was actually quite well. There's several quite interesting cases actually where they even had agents working inside the organisations, like at the Green and Common Peace Camp in the 80s.
Yes.
And in the 60s, there was something called the Black Panther Party in America. And for a while, it was led by a woman called Afeni Shakur. Now, she's actually if her name sounds familiar, she's the mother of Tupac Shakur, who also now he was murdered in very, I think, suspicious circumstances. The rapper, the rapper guy. Anyway, she was up in court on terrorism charges, and her defense was amazing. She said that all the worst excesses of the Black Panther Party, which is similar to BLM, it was a black civil rights organization that was very violent. She said all the worst excesses of the Black Panthers was committed by police informers and moles, and she was acquitted, which means that what she was saying must be true.
Yes.
And she must have had evidence that the organisation itself was so infiltrated by the police, and they had so many police agents in there that they were doing all the worst things. That's quite extraordinary, isn't it?
It is very strange, but
the Green and Common Peace Camp. Sorry, mate.
No, carry on, please.
I was going to say the Green and Common Peace Camp was infiltrated by the police and MI5 to the extent where one of the agents got married to one of the women.
I remember that. Yes,
and they had children, I believe. And then he just buggered off one day and went and he basically, your mission accomplished. He just buggered off.
Terrible, isn't it?
Yeah. So maybe you shouldn't underestimate the deviousness of our enemies to just do it to create images. They obviously want to get intelligence on us, to find out what we're up to, but and maybe get some dirt they can use in court against us. But their primary point is to create a certain image which they can put on TV and the newspapers and say, these are the people we're dealing. These are how horrible these people are. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And well, I say most people, however angry they are, I think most people have the sensibilities to know that this is counterproductive. Attacking a place of worship, attacking a hotel, a private premises, that's not going to help. That's just going to make us look like scumbags,
And that's exactly why. Have you ever seen on YouTube people are thinking, "What's this got to do with cryptozoology?" Don't worry, we're coming on to it. We're just building up to it. You see, we've got to get it off our chest first. Have you ever seen on YouTube the Beanfield incident?
Yes, the Battle of the Beanfield.
Battle of the Beanfield.
Yeah, that was
1970s, 79.
I think it was 1986. There was some similar incidents in the 70s. The Beanfield, I think, was 1986. Where a group of they call them travellers. I mean, they weren't gypsies or anything. These were like New Agers and people. They were generally people who were outside who off grid, what we call today off grid. And there is a connection into cryptozoology because the best book that I recommend. I mean, it's only a small segment of the book, but it's a book called the Blackdown Mystery by one of the world's top cryptozoologists, a guy called Jonathan Downes. He covers other subjects as well, and he wrote about the Battle of the Beanfield and his take on it, because he knew these people and was actually involved with them for a while. He even went to 1975. Thanks, Hatchie.
Yeah, thanks, Hatchie.
In his book, he describes how they were attacked in an unprovoked way at their campsite, and the police were even using their truncheons on women holding babies and things like this. And this destroyed like the independent traveller movement completely. The Free Rock Festival, the 3 Rock Festival people. Oh, this is interesting. Baby says.
Baby the Lasers. I was at the last Stonehenge festival. The Beanfield saga happened the year after.
That was just put an end to it. And I remember, thing is, I was just a kid at the time, but I remember the news stories about how horrible these people are. And there was all kinds of news stories in the papers about New Age travellers and how nasty they were.
That was it, yes. What's happened to New Age travellers?
Well, they disappeared. They're not in the papers anymore because they serve their purpose. The purpose was the purpose of the news stories in the Sun and the Mirror about horrible New Age travellers. I remember one line in the Sun. I didn't read it. I was just a kid, but I remember seeing it and reading the headline saying, "If only there was some kind of spray we could spray on them to get rid of them, as if they're insects." I mean, that is true. that's extreme propaganda when you equate people to one of the most extreme forms of propaganda is to create human beings to non-human animals.
That's right.
And even insects in this case. Now, what happened was the criminal justice bill was passed into law, which enormously restricted our rights to free assembly and things like this. And once that was, and it was very much being used, the New Age travelers were pretty much being used as the pretext to do it. They were the Islamists or the communists, or insert boogeyman's name here. Or at the un-V worded. There was all kinds of nasty people they're putting in. And then once that legislation was passed, those stories about New Age travelers vanished from the media because they weren't needed anymore. They'd served their purpose. They'd convinced the public to back the bill, and the bill was now an act. And it's
they destroyed travellers because they still lived by right of man, not right of legality.
Correct. They were a threat because they were what we call today off-grid. They had their own independent economies. I mean, Jonathan Downes, he's right. I mean, it's not often a book makes me kind of like shed tears. I haven't cried. I mean, I did. Charlotte's Web did when I was a little kid, but this one did. I mean, it's incredibly. It's only like half of a chapter, but it's incredibly poignant.
Oh yes, and I look on the mass media because I've got to be careful because we're on YouTube. But that's what I like about the radio because it's on Rumble. You say what you like, you say tip and things like that. Oops, sorry,
Yeah, well, we're on Rumble. Yeah, I know I've got you're doubled up on YouTube, which is cool. So I'll watch my P's and Q's.
This is what the problem I've got. I mean, I'll quickly share everybody. This is my schedule. You probably can't read it. A lot of schedule of people coming on, you see. And August is pretty well full. And I say to people, what would you like to come on? Rumble Radio, where you can speak freely, or YouTube, where you got to be a bit careful? Oh, Rumble Radio.
Yeah, definitely Rumble.
I need some PR advice on how to get people kicking and screaming onto YouTube.
Well, there are some videos I now don't. Some videos on Panmo TV. I don't even bother trying to put them on YouTube. I just make them all tech exclusives, and I put a notice video, like usually a comedic one, on YouTube, just telling people I've made an all tech exclusive.
But what gets me is with the media. So we're going to get onto cryptozoology pretty soon. Is with the media, is that to me it's a pantomime, and Donald Trumpy trousers. I think he is just part of the act, basically, and then you've got what I call a sort of catosexuals, people who worship Katie Hopkins and little Tommy Trinder or whatever his name is from Luton. Tommy Trousers or whatever. Because quite honestly, what is happening is basically what G. Edward Griffin made a film about. If you go onto YouTube, and it's still there last time I looked, he made it in 1966. It's all in black and white, and you see a very young G. Edward Griffin saying that the communists are going to cause absolute chaos by causing riots in all major cities. This was in America.
Is that The Fearful Master?
Something like that.
Well, that's a book. He's written a book called The Fearful Master about the same time.
It's brilliant. Yeah. And it's 1966 he did it. So
he's been doing this his whole life as old Ed.
Yeah. I've got a lot of respect for Me too. He's made a few clangers along the line, but who hasn't? He's made a few mistakes, yes. But I'm very envious of John Hamer because he actually had dinner with him.
That would have been an interesting meal, I'm sure.
Yeah. But he said that he came bounding across, and he was in his 80s when he met him. He's in his almost 100 now, and he said he was just like as if he's in his late 50s, early 60s, very young, sort of for his age, But anyway, we're going to move on to cryptozoology.
Yeah,
we've got a South Coast Rich says, I think Jonathan Downes is the guy who presents a Fortean cryptozoology channel on YouTube.
Yes, it's the Centre for Fortean Zoology. I think it's called On the Track, and he does one every week, I think. It's every week or every month. I don't know. I watch them. I don't watch every single one, but Jonathan Downes is, I think, one of the aforementioned guy who wrote the Blackdown mystery. He's written, I think, about several dozen books on cryptozoology and other subjects. and he's an incredibly intelligent, kind of charismatic kind of guy. He's a real character. He really is. I first read it. The first book I read was Monster of the Mere, because they found some kind of sea monster, or monster living in a lake in Lancashire, and it was eating the swans apparently. And so the Centre for Fortean Zoology went up there with it was Jonathan, and there was his two sidekicks, Graham Inglis and Richard Freeman. I know Richard Freeman, actually. He's I know him quite well. And they discovered it was a giant catfish that had been released there sometime in the 19th century and was still alive.
Good heavens!
Yeah, it's extraordinary.
There was a mystery where I used to live. There was a crematorium, or sort of cemetery, sort of gardens and that. And this is a bit sick what I'm going to say now, but I used to walk past this cemetery going to school, and I was coming home one day, and there was, they had this like sort of, I don't know what you call it, it's like a container of someone's ashes, which they sort of swing round the graves, or where they're going to be scattered. And it was bloody windy, and I got covered in.
Oh dear!
It's like this great sort of. I came off. I said, "Where are you, Big? You look filthy." I've got the remains of someone's granny over me. What I was going to say is there was some swans that had their legs eaten, and and they reckoned it was a pike, but it was a giant pike at that time, and it
must have been quite a vicious one to actually attack swans.
Yeah.
I mean, they normally go for smaller fish, and they're predators.
Yeah. But that's what they said at the time. But who knows?
That's the sort of thing the CFZ would like to investigate. You see, they go on expedition. They go all over the world to various places to try and find these unknown animals. It's actually quite. It's surprising when you look about how many parts of the world have really not been explored very much. Could be home to almost anything, and there are reports of all kinds of strange creatures there. And not only that, but even in quite populated areas, there are mysteries associated with wildlife that often involve the appearance of unusual creatures that don't appear to be there. I mean, there's Downs categorizes them into three parts. He says there are cryptids. Cryptids are truly unknown species. But probably more common are what he calls pseudo-cryptids. Now, these are known species of animal outside their normal habitat. A good example of this would be the wildcat, the British wildcat. It seems to be some kind of, it's a leopard or a cougar or something. That is the beast of Bodmin Moor. Beast of Bodmin Moor appears to be.
That's right. It's been spotted loads of times.
He thinks they think it's a jaguar. So that's a good example of a pseudo cryptid. The Welsh catfish in the Martin Mere, that's also a pseudo cryptid. But of course there are places. But a lot of people don't really understand how it's possible for a large unknown animal to exist, but it does. I mean, the most classic one is the Loch Ness Monster. Now that is a creature that lives in Loch Ness. Now Loch Ness is actually, even though it's the bottom is like, it's very deep. I think it's over 1,000 feet deep at the deepest point. And it's a distance you could walk in a few minutes. We know less about the bottom of Loch Ness than we do about some of the planets in our solar system. It is a world of mystery. It's sealed off from the rest of the world by a very, very deep water, which is full of absorbed peat. Now this is there's peat that washes down from the rivers and streams into the loch. It's what gives the Scotch whiskey its colour, which is nice, but it also gives the water its colour. And visibility is just a few feet. I mean, the water is incredibly opaque. But the idea is there's some creature down there that is unknown to science. It's very large. It's been reported as having a long neck. It's often depicted as a reptile. There's even theories it might be a dinosaur survivor, a plesiosaur, which is looks a bit like a seal. It's actually a type of dinosaur with a long neck. But my guess is it's a fish or a shark of some kind, probably a very unusual type. The reason is it doesn't surface very often, whereas a reptile would. A reptile has lungs. It doesn't have gills. It has to come to the surface to breathe, like a dolphin or a whale. So it's also not a mammal. It's not like an aquatic mammal for the same reason. So my guess is a fish or a shark of some kind. But it's reports go back a long way. I mean, St. Columba, who was the first missionary to Scotland, I think in the 5th century, he saw something like that. And it was only when a road was built along the shores in the early 20th century that sightings increased enormously, because it became a bit of a sensation. There was the surgeon's photograph, which apparently was fake. He later
Yes, it does look
but
fake.
he did say it was fake afterwards.
Mm.
But so it may. I'm not that I necessarily, as I've said before, confessions are claims too, but I'm inclined to believe him this time.
Yes, I mean, look at there. It might be a giant sturgeon that comes in through the locks, but I don't know. It's a weird thing. But the strange thing is when you're saying about deserted areas. I mean, parts of Scotland are very, very sparse. There's nobody hardly there. And I always remember when I was a kid, I think it was on Blue Peter. They said there's some mountains, and I think it was in Norway, and there's an area behind these mountains that nobody's ever been, and they were saying there might be mammoths there.
Wow.
There might be. And they've said about Russia, there might be areas in Siberia that are so remote, there might be mammoths still alive.
There are sightings of mammoths actually.
Yeah.
It is actually in Siberia. And I think of all the extinct prehistoric creatures, of all the animals that have gone extinct, the one I'd most like to see alive would be the mammoth. I'd most like to see that one alive, because the idea of an elephant in the temperate zone is just such a wonderful idea, and they look like such cool creatures. But why not? I mean, people do sight mammoths, you see, and people. How could you possibly hide how could a fully grown elephant, not just one, but an entire population of fully grown hairy elephants, possibly evade observation from the outside world? Well, in a place like in these remote areas of Norway, in like say in the mountains of Scandinavia, or even more so in Siberia, very easily indeed. I mean, there's almost no one who lives there. There's a few very remote human communities.
Well, there was that famous story. I don't know if you've ever heard it. About when was it? It must have been. I think it was the 70s. There was a geological team of scientists or whatever went to this very, very remote part of Siberia to do some surveys or whatever, and they noticed some smoke coming up in an area where there's no human habitation at all. It's strange. So they radioed in, and they said, "Well, could we go and find out if it's someone in trouble or what it is?" Because every night they saw this smoke coming up. That was very weird. So they eventually got permission to go, and it was about a day's sort of traveling, because it was very woodland and that, dense woodland. And then they came to a clearing, and there was like a cottage there. And I thought, my word. And then when they went to this cottage, they knocked on the door. So it's not a gag, it's true. And there was a couple there. They were brother and sister, and they were terrified. Absolutely terrified. They could just about speak Russian, just about. And what it was is that the Russian Revolution, was it the White Guard had legged it with his wife and 2 children to Siberia, and they'd stayed there, and these children were then adults. Their parents had died, and they'd never seen anybody else, no other human in their lives. And there was a documentary about them, and they could speak Russian and that, and they were, they sort of got used to people, and they were okay. But that is an incredible story, and they really had it tough in Siberia when they first went there. And you're talking about sort of 1917 and 1918, around about that time. So they didn't know anything about Stalin. They wouldn't have known anything about World War II or the Russian Revolution or anything like that, because they didn't have a radio. They just didn't know. Amazing, isn't it?
If people actively avoiding contact with others can do so, then other species can do it as well. And I mean, humans, there's situations where humans could be described as pseudo cryptids. I mean, You mentioned there's these poor people in the Amazon jungle they've just discovered there's an outside world, and unfortunately, the discovery is a bunch of loggers have moved into their area, and they've
Yes.
got a license to fell 130,000 acres of trees. And there's a campaign right now to try and get that license revoked, because apparently there's a couple of hundred people living there who just have no idea there's an outside world, and for them it must feel like Independence Day. It must feel literally like aliens are invading.
Well, that's it. But what
It's
they
horrific.
do, I think, is what AT would do with us. The anthropologists now, where they used to go in and say hello and give them this, they don't. They leave clues and let them discover us.
Yeah.
Just leave little clues to let them sort of puzzle and think, hang on, this is, and let them come to you. I do the same with sort of like animals. With a dog, I will not go to the dog has to come to me. Because anything like that, animals have to come to me. I don't go to the animal, and I think that's the best way of doing it. And I think that's what probably ET will do. They'll leave little clues, and so we're sort of, hang on, what's this? And gradually we'll discover them, not them discover us. Even though
maybe that's what they're doing. Yeah, that's it.
I think that's probably what they are doing. Yes,
it's interesting to think of ourselves on the receiving end of that kind of treatment, because maybe we're like them. But in terms of, I mean, the best place to find cryptids, I think, is the sea. I mean, the sea. Again, the sea is a mystery. We know less about it than we do about outer space. That every time a diving bell goes down, it discovers some new fish. But there are large creatures that we know are down there because they've been seen. For example, it took a long time for the zoological world to accept that the giant squid existed. It was a cryptid.
And a coelacanth.
Yeah,
the
coelacanth is interesting because the coelacanth was thought to be extinct, and it was then a fisherman caught one. In fact, we use the term living fossils or coelacanth, these creatures that are found to be alive. Richard Freeman is convinced that the thylacine exists. Now, the thylacine is sometimes known as the marsupial wolf, lives in Tasmania. And
Tasmanian tiger.
Yes. Now that was supposedly, I mean, it's been driven to extinction. I mean, there's some film of the last one. It was in a zoo in Tasmania, and there's some film of it. It looks very much like a dog, although evolutionary speaking, it's actually very different. It's evolved in a parallel way to look dog-like because it has a similar habitat and a similar lifestyle, but it is actually a marsupial, so it's more closely related to kangaroos. But Richard is convinced it's still alive, and people might laugh at that because they think, well, if it's still alive, people would know, wouldn't they? But not in Tasmania. Tasmania only has a population, I think, of like a few 100,000 people. It's the size of Scotland, so most of it is uninhabited.
That's right.
And Richard has been going into very remote areas. He's been talking to people who see them. They sometimes they run across the road in front of their car. They find footprints of them, things like that. He's managed to get. He's got some fur that he's trying to get analysed for DNA. All kinds of things like this. So it could be that it could be announced. And I think Richard's like the leading authority on this. And I think he goes to Tasmania every few months to try and find it out.
Wow.
That it could turn out the thylacine actually exists. I mean, he's got a book called Monster Hunter. I've got a copy of it.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah,
and
behind me somewhere.
Yeah, and it's actually been filmed in Australia as well. Some Australians have actually filmed.
Yeah, there's film footage. Richard thinks is genuine.
Yeah.
There's evidence that this exists, and I mean, large animals can hide themselves. I mean, for example, if you live in a territory, something. Excuse me. I was really shocked because I came across a deer a couple of months ago, and I knew they existed, but I'd never seen one. And then suddenly I saw one. It sort of jumped out of this bush in front of me, and I saw a deer for the first time. I knew they were there because, I mean, when it snows, you see their footprints everywhere in fields and things. But there are deer living in Oxford in some of the green spaces, and
there's loads around.
They just stay away from people. If they're a large animal. I mean, some of them are almost as big as horses. Yet because they actively avoid human contact, they can remain hidden. It's like Nessie. Obviously, is not a very sociable creature. If it was like a dolphin or something, like dolphins they seem to be quite curious about people. They don't have any fear of humans. They'll often come up to people's boats and like play around. And you can even go and swim in the sea, and they'll come up and play with you. You know, they'll come up and swim around you. But Nessie and similar creatures are obviously actively avoiding human contact.
That's strange, isn't it? Why animals are so frightened of humans? Unless
Because we're big, and sometimes
Yeah.
they evolve that behavior because we do hunt. We hunt, and we actually are a threat to most species.
We are, but
Yeah.
it's very strange. I mean, I'm glad the birds are frightened of us because, quite honestly, you'd have them like in the film The Birds with Tippi Hedren, being
Oh
attacked
yeah,
by
Alfred
birds.
Hitchcock film.
But that was actually quite good, that film. But
I
when
thought it
you
was good.
think,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, even now, I mean, all right, special effects are a bit weird, bit crap, but I mean, it's still pretty good,
Yeah.
But the strange thing is that even there's been sightings now. I live, as people told loads of times, I live quite close to the Lee Valley, and I often go cycling through there, and you can cycle for ages without seeing a soul. It's empty, and it's all woodlands and lakes, and there's been sightings of Bigfoot in the Lee Valley, which
That's
is
really weird, because
yeah,
there's a couple of people. There's a guy called Glenn Vaudrey. There's someone else called Deborah Hatswell, and they have very, very
yeah.
different opinions on what the cause of it is. But they've both been researching sightings of Bigfoot-like creatures in the UK. Now,
Mhm.
Glenn thinks it's not possible that a cryptid could exist in a country as small and densely populated as the UK undiscovered. Deborah thinks otherwise. But either way, they are seen. They are reported,
Mm.
even in the middle of in Kent. I mean, Kent is like one of the most densely populated areas of the country, and a Bigfoot was seen in Tunbridge Wells in a park with red eyes. It was a Bigfoot-like creatures. Now, things Jonathan Downes, along with the first two categories he puts into his work, such as the cryptids and the pseudocryptids, he includes something called zooiform phenomena. Now, these are what might be more akin to ghosts and specters
Mm.
or aliens, yet they appear in the form of an animal. And he suspects
Mm.
that the sightings of Bigfoot in places where in his view, it wouldn't be possible to exist as a cryptid, as a flesh and blood animal, are zooiform phenomena. And there's some evidence to support this. So, for example, there are several cases of Bigfoot sightings in conjunction with UFOs. I don't believe that it explains the entire Bigfoot phenomenon. I think there is a Bigfoot cryptid. But in certain areas, for example, there's a place called Presque Isle, which is in Pennsylvania, USA, and it's on the shores of Lake Erie, where it was in, I think it was in 1966. A group of young people drove out there for a picnic in a car, and they were sitting in the car, and this UFO, the flying saucer, landed behind a tree line, and a few minutes later, a Bigfoot appeared in the woods and began attacking the car. And what's more, it left behind scratches on the paintwork, which is evidence, real evidence.
Mm.
That was an extraordinary case. The people are very, very
I've never heard of
believable.
that one. That is incredible. But I actually wonder whether they are from a different time zone, and they can slip between times because hunters, and they wouldn't kill a Bigfoot. They're just hunting with their cameras, and they want to see one. Or trackers rather. I don't think the word hunter is correct. They're trackers. They've tracked Bigfoot, and suddenly the tracks stop immediately. It doesn't happen like that normally. Just
Yeah,
completely stop, as if it's just vanished. And it could be that they're able to slip between different dimensions. I do
yeah.
believe that sightings, like there's a time slip place up in Liverpool where people have drifted back to the 1960s and the 50s,
I
and
heard
some
about that.
weird
Yeah.
things that happen. There's I think it's, where is it now? I can't remember where it was, but I know it's somewhere in the Midlands. Might have been York. I couldn't get. So I got the same feeling, Ben. I'm absolutely. Do you know? Change the subject slightly. Doing 2 shows a week now, I think it does tire, doesn't it? I mean, I was absolutely cream crackered last night that came off. But anyway, that's 3 shows actually. I'm often on Thursdays. Anyway, what I was going to say is this chap was down in this basement of a pub, and he saw like a Roman army
Hmm.
come through the wall, pass him, and then carry on through the other wall.
I've heard that. Yeah.
Yeah, and they were. He gave a note. He made a note of how they were dressed, and he said, Yeah, it was when the Romans were just about to leave Britain, and they were.
There was a Roman road
Mhm.
under there, apparently in the cellar. There was
Mm.
the remains of a Roman road, apparently. Yeah,
Mm.
I heard about that. Yeah, that's you see, like time slips. There's no doubt people experience time slips. I mean,
Mm.
literal time travel is contentious in terms of the science behind it. There's paradoxes and things like that. But interdimensional, I believe there are parallel universes. It's possible to move from one to another,
Mm.
and some of these parallel universes will actually resemble Earth's own past or a possible future, and that is, I think, that explains these experiences. I think. I've had a time slip myself, so yeah, it's
Really, because I knew a girl
mm,
that did
mm.
slip back to the 1920s,
Well,
and this was in Hatfield,
mhm.
and she just turned back and walked back, and then she got back to her own thing. I don't
Yeah.
think she was frightened, but I'm fascinated to hear your time slip. What happened?
Well, I was at the Basis Project conference. It's called Basis
Mhm.
at the Black Swan, which Black Swan is an old pub in Devizes, and we were in a function room above the bar, and I was in a sort of half asleep state because I was very drowsy, and I suddenly found myself standing. I was at the back of the room, the same room,
Mhm.
and the fire was lit because I could feel it, and there was the big table in the middle of the room had been laid over with a white tablecloth. There were people sitting around it, and they were chatting, and they looked happy. And they seemed to be they just had a dinner, I think, because there was plates of food
Mm.
or empty plates of half-eaten food and things like that. And they were drinking wine from a wine glass and things like that. And I suddenly thought there was something a bit retro about their appearance. The hairstyles, clothing looked a bit
Mhm.
old-fashioned, and some of the men were smoking, which of course you don't do now in pubs. And then suddenly I was back in where I left, and it's almost like I experienced a moment of possibly something that happened in that room long ago.
Well, that's weird because there was a girl I used to know, Torna. Unfortunately, she's passed on now. She's no longer with us. And she passed away about 5 years ago. And she lived around Welling Garden City. And she used to work she was a gardener in Hatfield House. And she said now I'm not sure it's when she was a gardener, but I know she was walking along through some sort of woods, and there was a clearing, and she heard this 1920s music, and she saw people in 1920s outfits, and the old wind up gramophone and all that. And she said I think it was now. If you're up there, Torna, looking down, I'm sorry if I got this wrong, but I think she said it was cold and it was winter. But where she was, it was summer.
Hmm.
There's people in their summer outfit, and then she turned, went back, and it just went back into winter again. And then when she went back there again, it was completely different. It was a slip. She said it was definitely a time slip. But it's a different season as well.
Yeah.
So it's
That's
from winter and
things
it's
that
summer.
these
Yeah.
are quite common. Yeah, they're quite common. And but
Yeah.
I don't think it accounts for Bigfoot though. I mean, I don't. Someone's mentioned the Bigfoot of Box Hill. I know someone who lives near there. It's quite famous actually in that area. Um, and but what's you may be dealing with is like a zooform phenomena. I mean, there's the Owl Man. I don't know if you heard of the Owl Man. Now,
Now, I've heard of Mothman because
Mothman. It's similar actually.
in the write up to this tonight, I put down, please share because Bigfoot will be looking through the window behind you at the show, and also Mothman might be attracted by your lights, your house. So,
Hmm. That's
but,
I think though they're both examples of what you might call zooform phenomena, although they are sort
yeah.
of semi-human. They're very strange because these are sort of like almost half human, half some kind of animal. The owl man was, excuse me, the owl man was exactly what it appears to be. It seems to be like a huge owl-like creature, but with human elements to it. It has like hands on its wings appear to be half hands, and it was seen in an old church near Falmouth. And it was basically seen floating above. At one point, people saw it floating around the church. It was seen by a couple of kids. They could have made it up, but then another pair of children saw it a few years later.
Wow.
And so the CFZ did investigate that. I mean, there was always this idea that it might have been a hoax because there's this guy called Tony Shields. He's just died now, actually, who's a bit of an eccentric and a bit of tells tall tales and things like that. There was always this idea that he might have faked it, but you know, the crew have actually interviewed some of the witnesses, and they don't think so. They say one of them's quite a well-known TV presenter, he won't reveal his identity, but he thinks that it's real. He said they really did see something strange.
What about the Spring Hill Jack? Now, my grandfather, who unfortunately, my father's side, who unfortunately died a couple of years before I was born, my dad was saying that he used to talk about Spring Hill Jack because he remembers Spring Hill Jack when he was a child. This is my grandfather.
Must be pretty old, because I mean, this is 19th century, isn't it?
Well, yeah, but apparently Spring Hill Jack, he spanned for over 100 years. And I'm talking about 1910, 1920s, that he was still around.
So it came back because it left footprints in the snow, didn't it?
Well, what it was in London mainly. And I think it was Duke of Wellington went out on his horse.
Something else, yeah.
Trying to find him. That's how many sightings there were. And I know that the two Ronnies did a send-up of it, and it was written by Spike Milligan of the Phantom Raspberry Bro of Old London Town. And I'm off my seat with laughing with that one. I mean, I remember that's a classic. But seriously, women would open the door and this sort of huge whatever was there. And I think sometimes, though, there can be autosuggestion, because I know a bunch of students wrote an article about, I think it was Brighton University, about a UFO landing at a certain time at a certain place, and they had loads and loads of letters in from the press, because it was in the press years ago, of people that saw it, but it was made up. So people do an auto-suggestion.
Yeah.
So, you know,
some people try to plant hoaxes by sort of like making things up.
Yeah.
Some people say, "Oh no, I heard about that from somewhere else." You know, I know all about that, but
Mandela effect, I think it's called, isn't it? You know, like
that's the Mandela effect. That's not something slightly different, I think.
Yeah, but they thought he was dead because I thought it was his funeral, but it's when he was coming out of jail, something like that.
Well, some people misremember things. Yeah, I mean that's true. I mean, although I think the Mandela effect is more than that, personally. But Spring Hill, there's things like the jackalope. Nick Redfern has written a book about that. Nick Redfern studies a lot of these sorts of things, especially the connection with aliens and stuff like that. He's written many books about the Men in Black, which could be described as some kind of humanoid zooform phenomenon, if you want to put it that way. But the Mothman, the Virginia Mothman, is definitely. You see, I wouldn't call it a cryptid case. It's more like a paranormal. I wouldn't even call it UFO or alien related, even though UFOs are often seen in conjunction with these kinds of phenomena, which is why John Keel actually believed that they were connected, fundamentally connected. And in some cases, he might be right. I don't believe it explains the entire phenomenon, but in some cases, he might be right. But the Mothman, when it appeared in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, USA, it was seen, and it was in conjunction with Men in Black. It was in conjunction with all sorts of other weird sort of time dilations or causality dilations and things like that. And it culminated in, at the very end, this whole process ended with a terrible disaster. A bridge that crosses the river at Point Pleasant collapsed. It was actually near Christmas. This was in 1965, I believe. It was loaded with traffic because there were so many people. It just it just collapsed into the water, and I think 60 people are drowned. And some people have been saying, could it be that, again, we're looking at time travel, which again is paradoxical, but could it be some phenomena know what's going to happen, or they know there's a potential for something to happen and they appear beforehand, either as a warning or some kind of portent, or there's some kind of echo backwards in time? Another perfect example. There's an area, it's called Nantabuch, which is in South Wales, where a number of weird creatures were seen, like astronauts in suits. Obviously, these were like alien type beings. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Alien type beings.
Oh, mate.
And they were seen many, many places in this area, particularly around a road, a long straight road. Now, there was this was similar to the Mothman because it's culminated in a terrible disaster. What happened was a lorry collided head on into a minibus full of rugby players. I think there were like 7 people in the minibus, and then there was one guy driving the lorry. All 8 of them died at the scene. It must have been a horrible spectacle of carnage. And again, this is famous. It's the worst road accident that Wales has ever had.
Really?
And there's this kind of, and then this was 1977, I think, and then suddenly it stopped. Then these sightings just stopped.
How
As
weird.
if there is some kind of connection. I don't know. Could be coincidental.
But there are. I mean, I read a book once years ago called The Welsh Triangle.
Yes, and it's part of that.
And it was like a sort of like a Bermuda Triangle in Wales, because you know that there is supposed to be a pyramid in Wales, and a council estate has been built over the top of it.
Yes,
a hidden pyramid, and someone sort of again on Richard D. Hall's program, and someone wrote in and worked in this area and saw the top of the pyramid there. And there's lots of other weird things in Wales, like what was it, the Lost Ark of the Covenant or something that's supposed to be there. There's loads of I don't know. There's lots of mysteries and a lot of ghost sightings. I know that there's lots of ghost cars. I knew somebody that saw some cars from the 50s. They were driving along this windy road because there's lots of very narrow roads in Wales, especially South Wales. And she saw these 2 cars. It was a Morris 1000 and an old Austin A40. But going really fast in the distance. So she pulled over to let them pass. And she sat there and sat there and sat there. Weird. Then drove on very sheepishly because they were driving quite at speed. And nothing. They just disappeared. And she found out, I think it was on the internet, that there'd been a serious accident there in the 50s, late 50s, early 60s, with a Morris 1000 and an Austin A40.
Oh, well,
and she was seeing a replay.
That, yeah, she's seen like a replay. It's like a stone tape thing, yeah.
Same with the Dakota plane in Kent, isn't it? The one that keeps flying over and crashing into, all with D-Day stripes, all coloured out in D-Day, and crashing into a woods. But it's a ghost. It doesn't.
Extremely odd, isn't it? Yeah, extremely odd indeed.
But I think though that anyway, do you want to rest you because you have a little bit of a cough? Do you want? Should we go into chat? You might be able to, have a glass or something.
Yeah,
I think
sure, no problem. I might need to take a
break.
Right,
mate? Have you got hay fever or?
No, I'm actually just very tired. I mean, I've just done third rail radio and I had to fix some technical problems on the computer. So go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Check the chat box.
I'm cream crackered as well, so we both thought. So right, we got here. I used to live in Amesbury, very nice part of the world, that's South Coast Rich, about 2 miles from Stonehenge, and some hippies did behave very badly in town around solstice festival time, like crapping in the supermarket. Oh, what's wrong with that? I mean, I think both of us go in the supermarkets for a crap, don't we? I mean, it's the joy of the day. I mean, joking.
You could say that they provided some extra stock for free of charge. Right.
Well, people will be able to tell the difference between the crap that's in the gondolas and the crap that's on the floor. I mean, oh look, it's dropped out of the gondola. Hang on, it smells like crap. Tastes like crap. Well, it's a bit like I didn't tread in it, isn't it? Sorry, it's a terrible joke. Now, John Downs, this is South Coast Rich, says he regularly visited. He's regularly visited by the ghost of Joe Strimmer. Is he the man, Joe Strimmer, the man that invented the strange thing that you can cut the grass with? No, sorry. He's on Saturdays and Wednesdays. What? Joe Strimmer, he visits him on those days. He's bloody regular, isn't he? He sometimes starts with a song.
Oh, right, yeah. John's got an open mind to all kinds of things. I've emailed him a couple of times. Be a fascinating person to talk to. He really would.
That sounds interesting. I'll have to get onto that show. That sounds interesting. And yep, I remember going to a shop and seeing a sign saying "No festival people" What
Well,
about
because
no crap on the floor?
there are some bad ones. I mean, for example, there's
Oh,
those who
no.
are drug addicts and stuff. So yeah,
Sorry, Joe Strummer.
drummer. Oh right.
I said Strimmer.
Mm.
Ah, that's his brother. Now I was talking about pike gnawing off or eating or chewing a swan's leg, biting a swan's leg. A big pike eat ducklings
Oh right, yeah.
because pikes have got teeth sort of that are
Mm.
jagged, aren't they, like a saw blade? Now we got it's a jungle out there. We ought to see my bloody garden at the moment. That's a bit like a jungle. I think there's pockets of people. Well, it's a bit too late, but they used to say there's pockets of Japanese that don't know the war's over. But anyway, South Coast Rich. Luckily, I'd picked my green wellies, barber jacket, and cloth cap, so I got served. My woodpecker cider and six packets of biscuits. Did you
Oh,
really?
good.
Not many people know that. There, we got here. I'm only miles from Loch Ness. That's life, but not as we know it. I worked there a few years back, and the place is breathtaking.
It
I've
is.
heard it's a very creepy
Mm.
sort of place. You sort of, I don't know, but
It's got massive energy to it. I mean, I went there in
oh,
2005 and it was extraordinary. Yeah.
really. CFZ on the track is John Down's YouTube channel. Oh, CFZ. I'll check that out. Coincidentally, he's run a few videos or interviews re Loch Ness in recent weeks on there.
Oh, cool. Yeah, they did go on a search there once. They would like just dropping blood into the water to see if anything came to the surface for the bait. You know, they didn't
Yeah.
find anything, but it's always, these things are always worth a try.
Do you remember that bloke? What was his name? Peter. He studied birds. I can't think of his name now. Peter something or other. And he's supposed to have taken pictures of the Loch Ness monster underwater.
Oh.
And after he died, they found that what he named this monster was Peter something's little joke. It was the anagram.
Oh, I see. So he's having a
And
laugh.
they reckon it was his last. He was, he's getting on a bit. Peter, what was his name? Anybody in the chat? Peter. Anyway, it doesn't. He's been dead a long time. He's let himself go a bit recently. There are parts. This is life as we know it. Sorry, that's life, but not as we know it. There is parts of Loch Ness that are unmeasurable.
Oh, right. So actually, they've not actually been sounded. It's not actually been formally sounded. Oh, right.
Now we got here. Deer are the favorite prey of alien big cats allegedly roaming free in Britain, i.e., black leopards, puma, and lynx. I would be cynical, but I've had 4 possible big cat sightings. The best one, you cut off.
Yeah, they're seen quite regularly. I've no doubt they exist. I mean, the CFZ have actually found like corpses which distinctly look like they've been attacked by big cats.
Strange. Well, look, what about wallabies?
They exist. Well, I know they do because they're
no
on the Isle of Man.
wallabies. That's right. And what happened? There's some near Whipsnade, and they were escaped from a zoo, or were let out. And there's also the edible house mouse or something, or whatever it is. And there's bloody things chew through. They love cut wires in cars.
Oh, yeah,
that's bad. Going chewing through the 12 volts gives them a bit of a why. So they're like going.
There's a colony of wallabies on the Isle of Man. I didn't actually get a chance to film them because some of the other guys I was with just went there early. But I know they were there. They got film of them, so they didn't actually get there and see them.
It's a bit like Butch. Was it Skippy the bush kangaroo? Wasn't a kangaroo. It was a wallaby.
All right.
Because I don't think they could have used a kangaroo. Oh, you saved all those children. You sent a radio message, Skip. Oh, that's amazing, isn't it? 95% certain it was a lynx. Oh, this is carrying on. That's carrying on from his previous one. So he said, big cats, the best one. And he goes on, 95% certain it was a lynx. It was basking in the sun very early one morning in a field near the White Cliffs of Dover. He just stared at me imperiously until I decided to back further off. Very wise idea. If it's a lynx.
Oh yeah, well, lynx can
Back
be
off.
fierce. So interestingly, there's a White Cliffs of Dover element of pseudo cryptid there, because the song by Vera Lynn talks. It has the lyric, "There'll be bluebirds over the White Cliffs of Dover," but bluebirds are a pseudo cryptid because they don't actually live in this country. I mean, it could be. I mean, I'm joking. I mean, I'm sure she just chose the word bluebird because it fitted in with the music best, rather than sparrows or some other kind of bird. But technically, that would be a pseudo cryptid.
Yeah, but that's all. Now we got here. I was in Bigfoot hotspot yesterday, Baby the Lazy, Deborah Hatswell's old stomping ground, looking for an old haunted tunnel.
Oh right,
Interesting.
was it Salford where near Manchester where she saw one when she was a kid? Because she actually saw one herself when she was a kid.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
she and her friend, and her friend apparently, was so terrified. I think they fell out over the matter. But it was she described it very just like the North American Bigfoot, very similar.
And she said it was intrigued. It's as if, look, I'm fascinated. Look, I'm quite, Bigfoot of Box Hill. This is South Coast Ridge, near Dorking, Surrey, seen allegedly by the steps up and down Box Hill on the North Downs Way between the summit and the stepping stones over the River Mole.
So that's a British Bigfoot sighting there, yeah. Deborah's database actually has hundreds of them, yeah.
Oh, that's right. Baby with a Laser said, behind Wardley Hall of the Screaming Skull fame.
I've heard of the Screaming Skull, yeah. There's a skull that apparently doesn't make noise. It's weird.
And it's the Owlman of Molnan Smith, Cornwall.
That's right. That's where that is the church where that's the church where it appeared, or maybe it'll come back. You never know. I mean, I've not always been meaning to go there.
Well, I think Baby with a Laser's closer. I reckon it's Rick Stein. But I actually I've relayed this story before on the radio, so if anybody wants to make a cup of tea, you've heard it before. It's time to make a cup of tea or go to the loo. But many years ago, I was coming back from Stevenage, and there's a road that goes from Nebworth to Hertford. This is in Hertfordshire, and it was a winter's evening, and it was a clear sky, and all the leaves were off the trees, and I think it must have been a full moon, and the road sort of zigzags, and countryside all around, and suddenly I saw what I would interpret would be like knights, bald-headed knights, huge, about 9 foot tall, with their cloaks like this, and facial expressions moving. I thought, bloody Nora. Nobody else on the road. I was the only car on the road. I thought, holy shit. I hope my car doesn't. Not like Close Encounters, the third kind, where all everything goes in the car. And I was driving along, and as I was driving, the road was. I could see his faces going. I was thinking, oh my God. And do you know what it was? It was the entrance to an old stately home, I suppose. And it was 2 columns with balls on the top. And the moon was shining through the trees and reflecting as there's hardly any wind, but as the trees were moving, these light expressions, and your imagination does the rest. And when I got there and saw these 2 columns, how relieved I was. But it's surprising. If I would have been stopped, say, a few hundred yards back, or I'd have sworn that it was like 2 alien figures in cloaks that were totally bald-headed.
Wow.
But it wasn't. It was just 2 concrete columns with the balls on the top. The old.
When you got to see them closer, yeah.
That's it. And and by the time I got there, my stomach was going. And I was thinking, because what happens? Your imagination takes over.
Yeah, especially if you're scared. Yeah,
that's right. I was seeing faces, but it wasn't. It was the branches of the. You remember all the leaves are off the trees, sort of just gently blowing in a very slight breeze, and the moon was reflecting onto these. And it is, if I'd have taken a picture, I think you would have been convinced it was. And it's surprising, things like that. But the relief when I went past it. Because it's a bit remote. I wouldn't say that remote because it's Hertfordshire, not that remote in Hertfordshire. But there's no, in those days, I mean, going back a few years, there was no houses between there and Hertford, but that was on the old road. But anyway, should we carry on? We got here, was it? Hang on. We got here. I reckon it's Rick Stein. He says, what is it? He looks a bit aioli. He's getting on a bit now, I'd have thought. But what's that place where they have the obios? I've always wanted to see that. It was, that's where Rick Stein's got his restaurant. A restaurant I would not go to. But they reckon that it's become really expensive there. The locals can't afford to live there now because Rick Stein is there. But it's a restaurant I wouldn't go to. I would go to Bert's Fish and Chips around the corner and get a good helping.
Yeah.
Now, hello, this Stephen Truth. This is serious now. People have to stop paying your bills and draw your money out of the banks. I 100% agree with you there. Yes. Buy gold.
Yeah.
My mum was born in 1924. I think my mum was. No, mum was born in 1923. And she talked of Spring Hill Jack. She grew up in Openshaw, Manchester. That's interesting. So, your mum was a year younger than my mum. And she said, first time I'd heard of it was from my mum.
It's always worth keeping in touch with your grandparents, or just you never know what information they might give you. Something that's not common wisdom today.
Yes, that's it. Now it says here: stop paying taxes, council tax, income tax. Stop paying it. This is the British police and British government have now gone full communist. No time left. I 100% agree with you, Stephen Truth Seeker. I do not pay a television license. I got rid of it. Quite honestly, television.
Oh yeah,
my television uses a computer monitor now.
Just forging your own shackles. I mean, I'm sure Miss Carla Buckle, the lady, she actually she did stop paying her council tax, and she ended up in jail. But
but the thing is, if you let them in, if that's the thing, they've got as much right to come into your house as an Avon lady, and the chances of them.
And also, I should point out that. There's if everyone does it, of course they can't put everyone in jail. That's during the poll tax. When people stopped paying the poll tax, they couldn't jail everyone.
But by the way, Ben, I won't say anything, but there's a green alien behind you. But I bet
I know. It's all right. He's called Russell. His name's Russell.
Oh, hello, Russell.
There he is.
Russell. Right over alien.
He's always peeking over my shoulder, Russell. Yeah.
Do you know Fockham Hall, the smallest country in the world?
Yeah.
Has now got royalty. Yes, we've now got.
Who's the king or queen?
King Darren and Lady Tracy.
Oh, good.
Yes, they're a couple of the couple of birds, fluttery birds, feathered birds that come into the garden. You see, so I thought, have royalty. And by the way, would you like a Ponzi title? Because everybody comes on here as a Ponzi Fockham Hall title, like, shall we say, paranormal minister without portfolio or something like that.
I quite like the sound of that. Yeah, I think that'll suit me. Yes.
Yeah, paranormal minister without portfolio. Yeah. Yeah. And if you can find Ben's portfolio, might be left it somewhere. We don't know where it is. So.
I think it fell down behind a radiator. I think.
Yeah. Because we've got a Chancellor of Exchequer. The dog chewed up the pocket calculator, so it's all got a pot there. The cross of Jesus, his baby with a laser, is said to be in a woodland called the Forest of Mysteries.
Oh, right. I thought it was originally a place called the Golgotha, the place of the skull. But did they move? What happened to it afterwards? I know there's supposed to be several splinters of it here and there and everywhere.
Now, this is that's interesting. This is a bloody interesting one. This one is Hatchy Welsh Yes, I heard this, and bet you heard this. Welsh is supposed to be the oldest language still spoken, because somebody
Um,
matched Welsh up with a foreign language,
well,
and it's
it's
very
similar. It has
similar.
similarities. It's interesting actually because I come from Wales. I used to be a Welsh speaker. I'm sort of very rusty now. It's the oldest language I think spoken in Britain. It's older than English. It was spoken at least probably
Gaelic.
1500 years before. It was spoken. It dates back at least 1500 years before English, certainly.
Really? Is it Gaelic though, or is
Well,
it
in terms,
Gaelic?
well, its ancestor did Celtic. Its ancestor Celtic
Celtic?
was actually arrived was first introduced to Britain probably around 1000 BC.
Because I reckon
It's related to Gaelic. Yes, it
Mm.
is Celtic. Scots Gaelic is Celtic as well. Yeah, English is Germanic, but it is English. People only started speaking English around about the early Middle Ages. Before that, they were speaking Celtic.
That's
It was
interesting.
they adopted a new language. Contrary to popular belief, this wasn't because of any
Mm,
influx of population. There was no mass immigration or invasion, as you sometimes hear. It was
mm,
simply the native people adopting a new language and culture. But yeah,
mm.
but I don't know. I don't know if there's. I think there may be older languages still spoken. I don't know. Greek is pretty old. Um,
But I
and
know
of
that.
course, languages change. You could say that all languages like have been around
Mm,
for thousands of years because they evolved from older language. Like English evolved from Germanic, and Germanic evolved from Proto-Germanic, and they all evolved from Indo-European. And so you could say Welsh is not really any older than English. It's just in it may be very similar to Old Celtic. I don't know, but it's it's interesting now, isn't it? I
it
don't.
is.
It's certainly older than English in terms of languages of this
Cornish,
country.
because there's
Cornish is
Cornish
related to
Celtic.
Welsh.
Yeah, because I
It's
know
Celtic
that
related to Welsh.
if you go to what's that part of France, you can actually understand them because they speak a form of
They speak
um,
Breton.
Breton, which is very
Breton,
similar.
yeah.
Apparently, they
It
could.
is an insular Celtic language, yes. So it's
Mm.
related to Welsh and Cornish. I don't know if
Which
it's mutually intelligible, but it is has a lot of
mm,
similarities. Yeah. A good example. The Welsh word for a town is Tre,
mm,
Tre. Some people put an F after it, so it's Treve. I don't know why they do that, but most younger people say Tre. Now, there's the famous French footballer David Trezeguet. Um, his name's actually pronounced Trezeguet, and it's not a French name. Trezeguet is actually Breton, and the word Tre in Breton, the start of his name, means exactly the same. It means town.
really? Because
Yeah,
you see, my surname is Welsh, but it's the English spelling. It's Powys. It's not with a
yeah.
Y, with an I. And I'm more sort of Germanic than Welsh, but they say that if you are of Welsh descent, you are the true uh, English because the English, when the Romans invaded, escaped to Wales, Cornwall, and to get away from the Romans.
Well,
So,
mm, I
so
see.
if we look at the DNA, it's it goes way back,
Yeah.
um, because we mean we don't know what our grandparents got up to, but I know that there's a lot of people lived on the coastline of Wales, England, Scotland, and Ireland have got Spanish heritage because the Spanish what do you call it when they try to invade.
Oh, does he?
Um, yeah, they the ship, the whole force got shipwrecked, and the survivors came ashore and intermingled with the locals and had a bit of whoopee, and that's why you got a lot of Welsh, Irish, English, and Scottish with very dark skin.
Yeah, I've noticed there's some people certainly
Mm.
on the North Wales coast. There's a lot of people around
Yeah.
there who look like Mediterranean. I know a couple of
Oh
these
yeah.
people. Yeah, I mean
I
Tom
work with a bloke
Jones.
like that.
Tom Jones is from South Wales, but he looks very swarthy, doesn't he?
Well, there's
I think
something
he's
weird about
yeah.
Tom
I
Jones.
think Tommy's been touched with the tar brush, wouldn't you say?
Well, he certainly has. He's shrunk. My brother-in-law reckon he's shrunk. He said because he used to be a tall bloke and now he's a
He's
short
getting old
bloke.
now, but I mean, the
Mm,
as far as what you said before, I mean, doesn't I heard a different story because there was a DNA. They managed to find a way to test the DNA in the graves at Sutton Hoo, and they were expecting to find these people who were all first or second generation immigrants who'd come from the continent. Hence the Anglo-Saxon invasion
mm,
hypothesis. Which of course the Welsh and Scots nationalists love this because they can then pretend English people aren't really British and they they're not the real Britons and stuff like this. What they found though is they found that the people there had a completely indigenous ancestry. Now there's always been like influxes of people from abroad, like you mentioned the Spanish, into areas of Britain. But you see, for the Welsh, the various Welsh and Scottish nationalists who go on about Celtic people and things like this, it is actually nonsense. Because if the only way that could be true was if there were two completely exclusively inbreeding populations in this country, and there are not. There are not. If you do a DNA test from someone, say from Essex, and do one DNA test of someone from West Wales, there is a slight racial difference, but not much. Generally, it's actually negligible. The actual racial difference between Welsh and English people, the most Welsh and the English people, is negligible. So whenever a Welsh person says, "But I'm a Celt," I says, "Well, English people are Celts too, if we're talking in racial terms."
And also, what it's overlooked.
I've got some arguments with people about that.
Yeah,
they don't like it. They don't like it.
But in 1066, Welsh, Irish, Scottish, and English fought shoulder to shoulder to keep the Normans out because they knew that if England fell, they would fall. And so they helped and people don't realise that. And the reason why we broke rank is because of the language difficulty. Because they didn't understand the language properly because of the different terms. But that people don't realise that they did fight. They tried to put barriers up between England, Wales, Scotland, and whatever. No, they got on very well, and they fought shoulder to shoulder, brothers in arms.
Yeah, so, I mean, there is a physical barrier between Wales and England called Offa's Dyke, but according to the evidence, it doesn't seem to be some kind of fortification. It's not like Hadrian's Wall or the Great Wall of China. Those are very interesting because they are definitely fortified structures. The Hadrian's Wall is very old. It was like almost 2,000 years old, but it's built by the Romans to prevent Britannia being invaded from the north by the Caledonians and Picts. Offa's Dyke is supposedly 8th century, although some people claim it's much older. And it's literally just an earth berm. It's a hump in the ground. There's no evidence of any fortifications ever being built on it. It wouldn't be much use anyway because, well, it runs along the Wye Valley, the coast of the Wye. See the Wye Gorge at the estuary of the Wye. It is a very, very deep cliffs. It's very high cliffs. Yet the Offa's Dyke runs along one side of it, which wouldn't really be necessary if it was a fortification, because the actual cliffs themselves provide enough protection. So Cyril Fox, this archaeologist, he thought it was more like a designation. It was more like a border marker between the Welsh kingdoms and the English kingdoms.
It's interesting.
Offa was the king of Mercia, you see, in the 8th century. And he actually got on quite well with the. You see, the English and Welsh kingdoms in those days, they used to intermarry so much; it was hard to know which one was Welsh and which one was English.
Yes, they reckon the border. I mean, Powys Castle, my lot, because my grandfather always believed it had something to do with Powys Castle, so he might have blue blood. I've been practicing talking down to people and giving the way. You got to do that, and sort of.
Any excuse, yeah.
And he's got to talk through your nose. Oh, and that's it. You got to state the obvious, haven't you? You got to say, "So you're Ben, are you?" I see. See, so you state the obvious, ask the question, and answer it all in one sentence. You see, that'd be a role. Prince Philip was brilliant at it. He walked into a school and "You're a teacher, aren't you? Are you?" I see.
Oh yeah, obviously.
Yeah. So, but it's very demeaning. You see, demean people. But no, it's funny. But we got here. What's it? Now it says Paul Sinclair and Les Drake have made a DVD called Wolflands, which mainly charts and interviews 3 guys who were wild camping in remote Boxer Forest on the North Yorkshire moors and had cryptid experience.
Right, I've not seen that, but I've seen Elusive, and Paul made along with several other people. There's one called Elusive, and Paul now does a regular show, and he does lots of lectures, and he's written a book. Actually, I've got a copy of that somewhere. He's been investigating the Bempton phenomenon. Now, this is related to this, I think. It's just north of Hull along the coast. There's an area called Bempton. There's cliffs and things like that, and all kinds of weird things have been going on. It's very similar, for example, to Skinwalker Ranch. I mean, I could go into details if you like, but one of the most unique and unusual things is a creature that appears to be a very large humanoid figure with the head of a wolf. And this has been seen in various places, including in urban Hull. So, for example, it's known there as Old Stinker, and it's been seen several times over the last couple of 100 years. There was a sighting in the 60s, and then it went quiet. No one saw Old Stinker. But what's weird is that I think it was in 2013, there was a new sighting of Old Stinker at one of the drains. They call them drains, these big long canals that connect Hull to the river and things like that. And I was actually presenting a show on Critical Mass Radio in those days, and somebody mentioned that there was going to be a hunt. There was an organised werewolf hunt in Hull, and someone called into my show, and they were giving me like updates on the werewolf hunt. It was really cool. Now, they didn't find Old Stinker, but they did walk right along the drain, the Harmiston drain, where it's supposed to be. And they eventually, and then they came back, and they went back afterwards.
Well, my late cousin, he was conscripted into the army much because my father was the youngest one in the family by quite a long way. So I had cousins that were very old, and he was in an army camp in the West Country. I don't know where, just abouts in the West Country, and he and his friends were walking back from the pub one night, and they saw this horse running towards them, and they sort of got out of the way, and it ran straight past them, and they felt the wind from it, and it was quite it's white horse, crumbs. And when they mentioned it in the pub later on, in the week or whenever, they said, "Oh, that's old Ned. That's the ghost of a horse." And loads of people said, just got used to it. They could just call it Old Ned. So that was something, And now it's an interesting one. Hatchie, the Alan Wilson and Baron Brackett. Sadly, they're both passed away now.
Yeah.
Work on British history is an eye-opener.
It certainly is. And I'm afraid I've got to ask you if I can take a 3 or 4 minute break.
Certainly, and I'll go through all the chat.
Thanks, mate. Cheers.
If you're suffering a bit, we'll shorten the show. So don't worry.
That's right. I'll be okay. I just need to grab a cup of coffee and.
I understand.
Things like that. All right. Cheers. Thanks.
I'm a bit boring sometimes.
No, it's not you. It's not boring.
No.
I'm just very tired.
Just to tell you, I was on a show quite a few years back, and someone was talking, and I was very tired. I felt myself going. And when I saw the show back, I was like, right. So we've got here bloody hippies. You've got the hippie shake, yes. Well, I don't know. I thought hippies were all right. I used to have long hair down to my shoulders, but I was a bit too young for the hippies. Now it says here, this is Tina Elizabeth. Hello, Tina. I've been loving this tonight, Chris, especially listening to you talk about the forest people, Sasquatch, Bigfoot presence in the UK. Ancient woods here have some rather interesting structures. That's right. Well, when I was cycling along, I often go down the Lee Valley, and seriously, I go for quite a long time without seeing anybody. And I was thinking, if I was to see Bigfoot now, who would believe me? I mean, I hope I'd be safe. And I was like, cycling along, and all these sort of weird thoughts going through my mind, thinking, Now we got here the late Joe Strummer of The Clash. This is South Coast Rich. And Baby with a Laser says the Wallabies are in the Peak District. Are they? I thought that was near Woburn. I think that was in the Peak District. That's interesting. And on an island on a loch in Scotland. Yes, islands fascinate me. I don't know quite what it is. I'm going to have a glug. This is by the way, people are wondering what this is floating in my water. It's a slice of lemon. It's quite nice, actually. Now it says here, Actually says drive past Longley at night, and you can hear the lions at night time. They're loud. Yes, I had lived not too far from Broxburn Zoo, and they've got lions there. And if you drive past at night, I've heard that. I think, blimey, that must be bad indigestion I've got there. But now we got here. Baby the laser, better than tits. Yes, I suppose you're talking about birds, blue tits. Yes. There'll be blue tits over. Yes, the blue tits over the White Cliffs of Dover, especially if it's wintertime, very cold. Yes, there certainly would be. This is DJ Flipped. Many years ago, a big black cat crossed the road in front of me whilst driving in Romsey, Hampshire. It was much larger than a domestic cat. Well, there's nothing like seeing a pussy whilst you're driving along, is there? So here we go. Cat, I mean. Now we got here Lauren Angel, I've heard a theory that the cryptids are like super soldiers, part of an alien army. Any thoughts on this? Yes, I have heard that there's an old, I don't know what you could call it, theory. What would you call it? An old myth, I suppose you could call it, an old legend. If ever this country was attacked, King Arthur would come out and defend us with his knights in armor. Nice to believe, isn't it? Where is he now? Against Keir Starmer. Come on, Arthur. Where are you? Arthur, cooey. Perhaps we should entice him out with some cucumber sandwiches or something. But no, I'm very much into Cornwall. I love Cornwall. I don't know. I've always had a draw to Cornwall. There's something about, I don't know. It's part of my ancestry, I suppose. I think my mother's side it's part of me. But no. Oh, and also on my dad's side as well. Now we got here also South Coast Rich. Also allegedly wallabies in Kent. Kent has so many alleged sightings of big pussycats or big cats, cryptids, strange species, etc., especially for a relatively populous connected county. Remote in places, though. Yes, it is actually. Yes, I like Kent. I think Kent's quite nice. The Garden of England, but it isn't. The real Garden of England apparently is Lincolnshire. And here he is. He's back again.
Nice, how you doing? Yeah.
And do you feel a bit better now?
I do, thanks. I just need to take a little break. I'll be okay now. Just got myself a cuppa.
That's what. I've been thinking of getting. Nice bit of coffee. I like coffee. Watching the Gateshead Grey on Richard D. Hall's Webby suggests so.
That's interesting, that one. Yeah, I mean that's one of Richard's early videos. Yeah, it's. I went to the location. I had to look at that.
Yeah. Remote. This is Coach Rich. Yeah, remote Kent, possibly at its remotes where the North Downs broadens out between Ashford and in southwest Dover and southeast, and Canterbury in the north. Recent return of puma sightings in the Elham Valley there. That's interesting. Yes.
Yep. Pseudocryptids. Yeah.
Yes. Now it says here, South Coast Rich says, Rick Stein's most famous restaurant is in, that's it, Padstow, with the old Obios, sometimes called Padstein, that's it. But locals, due to all his food outlets there, including a pub, takeaway, accommodation, etc.
Oh, yes. Padstein, all right. Yeah. It's been named after the famous celebrity chef.
Yes. I'm afraid I don't do ponce. I can't stand poncy food. My attitude, when I go into a place, I want some grub. I want some nice grub, nicely prepared, but I don't want it poncy. I just want to eat something that I enjoy. And, all this like nouveau cuisine. If I want to see art, I'll go to an art gallery. If I want food, I want it on the bloody plate. Thank you very much. Right. Welsh cannot be spoken in Parliament. Yeah, Yiddish can.
All right, I thought only English can be spoken in the British Parliament. I didn't know, but there's any rules. I mean, obviously, like MPs, it has to be a language that MPs can speak, or they have a translation like they have in the European Parliament, where they have like loads of translators. In the Welsh Senedd, of course, it's bilingual. The Scottish Parliament, you can speak Gaelic there. They have like translators, and you put in earphones like these, and it'll tell you what they're saying if you trust them.
That's right. What about Cockney? Cool, blimey, mate. You know,
Why Yiddish? I didn't think Yiddish could be.
That's interesting, because I know there's the because people say, who is the prime minister? This is my trick questions. You see, 2 questions. Number 1, who is the prime minister of Great Britain? And people say, oh, it's this Keir Starmer. Wrong. It's the director of the Bank of England. Where is the capital of Great Britain? Oh, it's London. No. Rothschild's Bank. So there we go. So you got
the City of London. Isn't it? The City of London is a different entity. It's a different entity to the rest of the city.
Own police force as well.
Yeah, that's right. They wear little red piping on the uniforms. That's right.
And there's a line that you go across there.
I was almost arrested by a City of London officer. I wasn't actually in the city. I was in. I was at Downing. I was on Whitehall on a protest, but he didn't arrest me in the end. He just escorted me out of the area. But he did say if I didn't go, he'd have to arrest me for my own safety.
It's always for your own safety, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I went into Home Base the other day, and they said, for your own safety, for everyone's safety, they got security cameras. Was the roof going to fall in if you didn't have the roof secure? Were the security cameras propping up the roof or something, or were they sort of wedged against something to stop something falling on you? Weird,
Well, they're not much good at safety because they never work when you need them to. I mean, they'll work when you park in the wrong place. They can give you a fine.
Yeah,
but they won't work if you're attacked by somebody, for example. The police will just say no CCTV data. I'm afraid. Yeah. So it's not. They don't work when they're really needed.
Well, when someone modified my car in a supermarket's car park, they had cameras all over the place, but I was just out of shot, so they couldn't get the number plate of the car that modified my car.
Yeah, of course.
Now, that was some years back. Are there breeding things? Lauren Angel says, are there breeding populations of dogmen living in this country? It seems a bit of a stretch considering wolves went extinct. Any thoughts, baby?
This is an important point. But I say hello, Maureen's there. Hi, Maureen. How you doing? But on the subject of dogmen, you see, I would classify the dogmen as a zooform phenomenon rather than a cryptid. Personally, if you see the way they're described, they're actually described as slightly larger than a grown man, and they're very fierce. They have big claws and things, and such a creature would be an apex predator. It would have a limited amount of prey. I mean, you couldn't have a breeding population really for considering how many hundreds of individuals you'd need. In like the East Riding of Yorkshire, someone would spot it no matter how much it evaded. I suspect it's a zooform phenomena, and that counts with the other elements of the Bempton phenomenon, which includes what you get on Skinwalker Ranch, the ghostly creatures, strange cryptids, men in black. There's also a number of mysterious disappearances there as well. People going for walks and never coming back, and no one can find them. And they take sniffer dogs out. The sniffer dogs lose the scent. It's what kind of thing David Paulides talks about.
That's right.
In the Missing 411. Yeah, it's not confined to America. No way. No. It's something that happens sometimes in this country too.
Have you ever? I mean, I've often been walking along and got the feeling. So there's a saying apparently in Africa: for every one pair of eyes that you can see, there's 20 looking at you that you can't see.
I can well believe it.
And I've actually walked through parts of woods and that round where I live, and I've just got this sense there's something watching me. You just get that feeling. And I did that once, and I got round the corner, and a flight, I think it was pigeons, fluttering everywhere. Let's put it this way. I almost had a laundry problem. I think I put that. Yes, I think that's the politest way I could put it, very serious. Almost crap myself. Now, it says, we got here. Ben, are there still many people in Wales that speak Welsh most of the time?
Yes. The further north and west you go, the more you get Welsh-speaking areas, yeah.
And the head of the Welsh nationalists, he was part English, wasn't he? Half English. It is the least person you need to expect.
You see, if you want to say, is there any Welsh? are there any Welsh people who are
Right.
not half something else, usually English? The answer is no.
Excuse me. By the way, this is Bert the spider. Look at that. Isn't he nice? Look, see?
Oh,
There he is.
cool.
Yeah, I'll put him over there. Yeah, Bert, over you go. Right, that's it. Now, no, it's I know they're trying to revive Cornish, aren't they?
Yeah, it's been quite successful, Cornish. It's,
But I've never met a Scotsman that could speak Gaelic ever.
oh, well, there's a couple of the parliamentary members can, and if you go to, you have to go to somewhere quite remote, like in the northwest, in the islands and places like that. That's where Gaelic spoke mostly. Yeah, it's not as
And-
widespread as Welsh.
And did you know that during World War II, they particularly you had an advantage if you were Welsh, if for sending messages, because they actually sent messages to each other what do you call it, uncoded, because they knew the Germans wouldn't understand Welsh.
Well,
So they sent uncoded messages to each other, and it was
yeah,
quicker.
that trick will only work for so long because
Yeah.
they'll find someone who can speak it in Germany, and that person will be, for example, like they had a guy who spoke Irish. The Nazis had. They employed a propaganda broadcaster to broadcast.
Oh, that was Lord Haw.
Yeah, similar to Lord Haw, except he was
Mhm.
actually broadcasting to Ireland, a neutral country, in the Irish language.
Really?
Yeah, he was an Irish language professor at the university, and there's a TV show there's a TV show I watched about him.
But do you know that film about the elephant that went over the mountains? It was a rather light-hearted comedy where, well, apparently it's slightly based on truth.
Well,
They
Hannibal
went
used
around
elephants, didn't he?
Hannibal, yeah. But apparently, the Germans desperately needed people to look after the animals in the zoos, and they went around the POW camps and as volunteers, and they found people that were zookeepers, ex-zookeepers, who went and they looked after the animals. But loosely, it's not, it's loosely based on that. And one of them, a professor, stayed there after the war and did very well. He spoke German,
Yeah.
and he got on very well. Yeah.
Can I answer? Laura's asked a couple of questions. I'd like to go
oh,
forward because we're probably not going to get through all these comments before the end. But Laura's asked several good questions. Lauren,
right,
sorry,
well,
Lauren Angel.
Lauren Angel. Okay, I think you are right, baby. There does appear to disappear there. Where's the questions, Ben?
He
Where
said,
are we?
Lauren asked me to explain zooform phenomena. It's part of Jonathan Downes's work. He has categorized cryptids into three categories. One is actual cryptids, that is Bigfoot, Nessie, etc. The second one is pseudo-cryptids, known species which we find outside their normal habitat, like the beast of Bodmin, which is a lynx or puma. The third one is zooform phenomena. These are things more akin to other paranormal phenomena like ghosts, aliens, etc. But they appear in the form of animals, and I say that would include, for example, the beast of Bodmin, which is like a cryptid, but they appear in the form of animals or part animal or cryptid. And include some Bigfoot sightings, not all. And Lauren also asked me, have I had a cryptid encounter or some other phenomenon? I believe I had a pseudo-cryptid encounter in... Well, I can't remember if it may have been ghostly. Cause my first thought it was like something ghostly because these things seem slightly transparent, but it may have been just my eyes playing tricks. But I was sitting in a park near my home very early in the morning in about 1996 or so. And these three horses walked out of the darkness behind me. Out of nowhere, these three horses, no riders, no saddles, no bridles, no reins, nothing. Just three horses, and they walked out the gate, and they walked down a nearby road. But no idea where they came from or where they were going. It's very weird. But I remember thinking they were slightly transparent and as if they were like ghostly. I remember thinking that.
We've also got on here. We got Maureen.
Hey, Maureen.
Hello, Maureen. Ben, do you remember when I took you to the Gateshead Grey area? Hi to Chris too. Hello,
yeah, I do. We had a great time because I've been there twice now because I went there with Richard D. Hall when I was filming with him. He took me there, but it was all dark, and it was too dark to go down the steps into the crypt under the church where the alien was stored. But he did show me the area because it was dark, but he showed me the area where it all happened. But then I went there with Maureen in daylight, with Maureen and Dawn and a couple of other people. We went there in daylight, and we explored the streets. We went to the church. Unfortunately, we couldn't get into the crypt because they shut the door. But I did ask the people in the place, because it's a deconsecrated church. It's now a cafe and a exhibition
Mhm.
for really lovely mirrors, and they've got these really amazing mirrors there. I did ask them about it, and they said, "Oh, we don't use it for anything really." And I asked them, "Do you know anything about the alien that was?" I didn't lead them like that. I just said, "I hear there was some weird things going on in World War II with that crypt under the church, you know." And they said, "Don't know anything about that."
It's a
They said
long time.
they hadn't
Sorry, it's a
heard.
long time.
Either that,
Yeah.
they obviously didn't watch Rich Planet TV either.
Well, that's. But I didn't know Dawn was interested because Dawn was on last night. She was actually
Was
on the show
she?
last night.
Oh,
Yes,
cool.
and
Right. She's
I
written
hope.
about her business where she sells and she sells things, and
Does
she on
she?
eBay. Yeah.
Does she? I didn't know that because I know she. Are you talking about the same Dawn that Poe wrote the "What Really Makes You Tom and Dick" or ill?
It's Maureen's daughter.
Oh, I'm sorry, I got
Oh,
muddled
we're
up.
talking about two different people.
Tom Lester, I thought you meant.
All right,
Oh,
no,
I
I'm talking
forgot
about
about
someone
Maureen.
else. Yeah.
Sorry, Maureen. You haven't got a daughter with a different surname. Right, we got
Oh,
here.
Lauren,
What?
can I just say, Lauren said she's gonna sub to me. Thank you very much, Lauren. Well, that's my radio. That's a Panmo radio. You can go
Oh,
there.
that's
But thanks.
lovely.
But there is a Panmo TV.
Hey!
There's a Panmo TV as well. There's links. You'll find a link to that on
Oh,
that
that's
page
lovely.
to it.
That's
Thank you.
great.
Thanks, Lauren. Much appreciated.
Alan Wilson said Welsh cannot be spoken in Parliament and Yiddish can. He's on video saying it and he gave examples, I recall.
Right.
Ooh,
Now, I don't
yeah,
remember. I certainly it
I
hasn't
remember
happened
that.
during the time when Parliament's been
Mm,
televised. I mean, if I was an MP and someone spoke Yiddish, I'd say, well, look, you need to translate that because I can't speak it.
mm.
Yiddish is very similar to German. It's actually
Is
a
it?
form of Low German, but it's written with the Hebrew script, not the Latin script.
Well,
So
I actually,
mm.
I'm
A
quite
German and a
surprised.
Yiddish speaker could speak. They could hold a conversation, but
Really?
they couldn't send each other letters. Mm.
Because I'm quite surprised that because I thought in Parliament they spoke out their arse. I didn't realise they could just,
Yeah,
I didn't realise they spoke sort of.
God knows who cares what they all talk
That's
gibberish
right.
anyway. So yeah, who cares?
Yes, SCR, I agree. Better to say nothing and maintain your integrity. I think that's I got a thread there. Now, Laura, is it Lauren or Lauren?
Mm.
Lauren,
I think
uh,
what she asked me, that was why I was answering. It was
explain what a
zooform phenomena.
Zoom for. Is it a Zoompa stick it up a jumper? Is please.
Zooform phenomenon. Zooform
Hmm.
phenomenon.
I
Mm.
may have pronounced that wrong. I don't know. I never heard of it. What is it?
Zoomorph. It's a zooform phenomenon.
Hmm.
So it means
Um,
basically like an animal, something like an animal.
Now, I think you just read
Yeah,
that
the
one out.
horses. That's
Yeah,
something. The
yeah.
horses. That's the only cryptid encounter I've ever had. If indeed they
Hmm.
were cryptids and not zooform phenomena.
Hmm. But alleged sightings of wolves in the forest of Dean. This is South Coast Rich. If you want to search for a wild, weird, or unexpected animal in the English countryside and are optimistic of success, then the forest of Dean may be
Yeah,
good.
I've heard that too. It's
Hmm.
a spooky place. It's very. There's lots of. Excuse me.
Don't worry.
It's
Totally
a very
understand.
spooky place with there's
Yeah.
lots of large forested area unspoilt. It's
Now,
the kind of thing where weird things happen. Indeed, they have reintroduced wolves into certain areas, like in
hmm,
Wales and in Forest of Dean and some other places, to see if wild packs of wolves will come back because we used to have wolves in this country.
yes, they were hunted to
Um,
extinction.
yeah,
And
some,
was it beavers? I think beavers
we have
were they?
beavers too. Yeah,
Yeah.
but
But
yeah, they've been reintroduced.
thank you, Ben. What is your channel called? You have won a new sub.
Well, you've been
That's what
showing
he
it there.
said.
That's it,
Right.
Lauren. That's the Panmo Radio, but you can find a link to Panmo TV from that, and I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoy it.
And then we got here Maureen, slap wrists, naughty boy, calf under the spire, not church under the spire.
It's not a church anymore. But it's a lovely place. I mean, it was
Mm.
deconsecrated a while ago, but it's a lovely cafe there, isn't there? I mean, Maureen and I have been there a couple of times with our friends, and it's a beautiful place. It's nice.
As the riots going, Maureen, are they stoking up in Newcastle, or haven't they reached there yet? I know it's in Teesside. They've had some as well, so you know. So like, I could actually do a coach tour of them, couldn't they? You get in a coach, say where is it today? Sorry, but
Well, they're mostly peaceful protests.
yes,
So,
why not?
yeah, so
Now, what have we got
that's what
here?
they said about BLM, so we can say the same thing.
That's right. Now it says, I've got an interesting story about the beast of Bodmin. You must remind me to tell you about it sometime. This is James SS. Please do. Fire away. And DJ Flip says, I've got a photo of a wallaby with a joey in her pouch. Beautiful sight. The photo was taken at Whipsnade Animal Park.
Nice. They're lovely.
There's a bloke in Australia who actually he's got a heart of gold, and he rescues injured kangaroos that have been found by the roadside, that have been knocked over by cars and whatever, and orphaned joeys and things like that. And he knows exactly how to bring the kangaroo up. And there's a point he said where you have to let it go back in the wild. And the way he breaks them in to go back in the wild, he's really clever, very clever bloke. But he breaks you up. But what he does, he has a thing round his neck with a little joey in it, and he says this is orphaned, and he sometimes can find a surrogate mother for it. Sometimes he reckons that kangaroo mothers are the finest mothers in the world. They really do look after their young, you know. But I just got a soft dart for animals, you know. Now we got here. They seem multifaceted. I don't know enough to say, Tina. What you're talking about, cryptoids and things, you know. But I know that sailors often see strange, very large creatures in the sea that you wouldn't normally see.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I can think of there's a perfect example, actually, of some German submariners in World War One who saw a creature jump out the sea, and they report it as looking like they said it looked like a crocodile, but it had flippers instead of legs. Now, they didn't know anything about these. Were not guys who were experts on paleontology or anything like that. But what they actually saw did actually exist. It was a dinosaur. I forgot the name of it now, what it's actually called. But there was a dinosaur that looks exactly like that, and it's thought to have died out like in the end of the Cretaceous, 65 million years ago. But what if it still exists in the sea somewhere in remote areas, and it's only seen very rarely? Yeah, it's only seen very rarely by ships, because it probably gets out of the way of ships and things like that. It may have got near the submarine because the submarines might have been quieter than most ships, and it might have seen them.
It's strange because I know there was a dinosaur that used to only eat porcupines. It was called a Megasaurus. Sorry, it's
terrible. You're in good form tonight.
Right, we got South Coast Rich says, I'll shut up in a minute, but while I'm mentioning websites, podcasts, etc., an excellent website and podcast on the subject of big British big cats, hosted by the very knowledgeable and balanced Rick Minter. I've never heard of Rick Minter. That's interesting. Now it says we got here. Tina says, I feel personally that they are highly intelligent. What are you talking about, MPs? No, I don't think so. And have skills and abilities that perhaps we once had too. How about you? Well, yes, I think you're right, because the thing is that you put us in the wilds. I mean, I was talking to survivalist Steve about wilds. I was brought up, I don't know about yourself, Ben, I think it's probably similar, in a sort of urban environment. We've never really, if we put us in the wilds, we take a long time to adapt, because we are adapted to urban, basically.
Some people like to. I mean, I think the survivalist thing is partly a hobby. You know, people it's like it's quite fun to go out and see how well you get on in the wilderness, camping, wild camping, and hunting and things. You know.
Well, that's right. Yes, but I think when it comes to, excuse my language, crapping in a hole in the ground and that type of thing, perhaps I do like water closets after all, and
Yeah, I'd
flushing it
probably get.
away.
I would get used to it, but I'd still
Yeah,
miss the old flush and toilet paper.
but
I'd sort
that's
of
right.
think to myself, it'd be nice to have those back one day.
Also, not getting bitten on the bum by a gnat, oh,
Yeah.
and flies, but I think that really, I admire people like the Kalahari Bushmen. I've got great admiration
Mm.
for them.
Yeah.
Unbelievable skills they've got, and they
Mm.
live in a harsh desert where you look at it and you wouldn't think anything would survive, and they are, when you look at tribespeople, the nicest tribespeople you could ever wish to meet. They're so friendly and so polite and very nice people,
Mm.
and they're very short, very small build, and they had an athletes, didn't they, with them, and the athletes were cream crack and almost on their back, and the Kalahari Bush were just warming up. They're thinking,
Yeah,
bloody weird,
they're perfectly adapted to their environment. That's right. They're perfectly
That's
adapted.
right.
They know how to get water out of the ground and things like that. They know how to how to hunt the animals, and they know what weapons to
Mm.
use. Yeah, but amazing people, amazing. Yeah,
Well, it's
and
like bush
they have
tucking,
unique language as well. They have a new unique language. It's very
a
strange
click, don't they?
phonetics. It's a click
It's like,
language
yeah,
like
yeah,
that,
yeah.
but it's there's no other language in the world like that.
No, no. The other people is there was some during World War II. There was a plane that crashed in the northern states of Australia, and the poor sods, they died of thirst. And the Aborigines were watching them. They couldn't understand why, because there was an abundance of food and water, but they didn't
Yeah.
realise that these men didn't know. And that's where Bush Tucker Man came in,
Mm.
because he trained the Australian army and forces how to survive in the wilds of Australia. So they
Mm.
could, and that was a wake up call. But when you think about it, our ancestors survived. They were clever.
Mm.
They must
It's
have been.
like Crocodile Dundee says, you can live off it, but it tastes like S word.
Yeah.
I love that film.
Oh yeah. I like when he's I like when he's washing his socks in his bath and he's having a bath. He goes, yeah, that's all right.
Yeah.
Australians, I mean, it's a funny uh for example, did you know that the didgeridoo, um, Madonna paid a great insult to the Aborigines because she came off of a plane holding a didgeridoo. It's only men that use
Oh
a
right, so it's
didgeridoo
a
as a
man. All
healing
right.
stick. I'm
Mm.
not sure it's all the Aborigines,
Mm.
but she apologised because she didn't realise it, and I think they accepted her apology. But the thing is did you know that it's like a cat that purrs? It has healing qualities, and
Mm.
there's something about this. I mean, I love the sound of a didgeridoo, and I don't know why. It's
Yeah.
strange. It's that sort of it's very relaxing.
It probably has a calming effect on people, And it's like,
Mm,
and the Aborigines are amazing because they do cave paintings of creatures. They call them Wangina, and they
yeah,
look like grey aliens. They look exactly like grey
mm,
aliens. Now, according to what's his name, the Brian Dunning, the Skeptoid guy,
yeah.
he's recently done another film supposedly debunking UFOs, failing in my view. He said, "Well, these grey aliens didn't. You always see the standard alien is like this one. It's like that one there.
Yeah, hang on. I'll take your do flop off
Yeah,
here. Hang on. Where are we?
sorry, it doesn't matter. I've shown people.
There we are. That's
There we
it.
go.
Yeah.
It's like that standard thing there." And he said that image only dates back to 1977. And he says, "Why is that? Because that's when Close Encounters of the Third Kind came out.
Mm,
The film which had those aliens and everyone who encounters greys are just thinking of that film. That the film planted a popular meme in the culture.
mm,
Thing about it is though, he's put the cart before the horse because Robbie Graham, he's now sadly passed away. Robbie Graham actually got in touch with the production designer of Close Encounters, and he had a long conversation, and he said, "Where did you get the idea for those grey aliens? The little ones that come out of the spaceship at the end and wander around. Where did you get the idea for those creatures?" And he said, "Oh, it's simple. I phoned up one of the people who sees them, and I asked them what do they look like." So Dunning he's got completely the opposite way around.
mm.
it wasn't Close Encounters that created the myth of the grey alien. It was the myth of the grey alien that inspired Close Encounters. For that reason, you go back further in time, and where do you see the beginning of them? Well, those Wangina cave paintings are maybe 10, 20 to 20,000 years old. That's how old they are. And the Aborigines were drawing pictures of creatures that look like grey aliens as long ago as that. There's similar creatures. There's some in Arizona, USA as well. Which, again, you see these are completely different people, the Amerindians. They're only 2,000 to 3,000 years old. They look exactly, so they're many, many millennia after the Aborigines painted the Wanginas on the other side of the Pacific Ocean, but they paint the same creatures. So maybe these aliens, these things, there's more to it than that. They are actually, there's something
Well,
real
also, there's a carving of one in a remote Welsh, sorry, no, that's in Wales as well, Welsh church. On the outside, it's carved, and it's hundreds of years old, this church, yeah.
And it's an alien like this. It's an alien.
Yes. And it's
Which
actually,
church is that?
I don't know which one. I know it's in South Wales. I think, what's his name? Mark Windows went there. I think Mark Windows went there. Right. You might want to ask Mark Windows.
I will. I know Mark.
Because I'm pretty sure he went there, and it's quite, it's quite interesting because you can actually see it carved on it, and it's, as I say, it's years old. Nice. But it is odd, these cryptoid things. Well, we're coming up to the end of the show, and I don't know about you, but we were both absolutely cream cracker tonight. And now your show goes out, was it this Thursday?
The next one is Thursday. Yes, it's the Hapanwo show on Hapanwo Radio. Yeah, I've just posted a podcast though, Third Rail Radio, and Sunday night is Spanner night. That might not interest people in your audience because that's just about hospital portering. But I do 3 radio shows a week. Yeah,
it's interesting. I would have thought you would have got quite a few on that because do you get many hospital porters saying I'm fed up with the NHS and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, we that's what the show's about, basically. Yeah, but I mean, so I do 3, like you. I do 3 shows a week.
It is a bit. Yeah, I actually find it does take it out of you.
Lawrence just asked, "Do I know Kaz Clark?" Yes, I know of her, and I know her. I've spoken to her many times, Lauren. Yeah, I think I don't have time to talk about it now, but I do believe her. And Gary Jones, the field researcher who's looked into this, I think he's discovered real evidence of it. Yeah. This is a UFO witness, Chris.
But anyway, Ben, I think we're both going to sort of go if we do. By the way, if you've got the adrenaline running, I'll tell you a little trip I use, and I'm not a trained medical or anything like that. Just there, I just press that nerve there, and it calms you down.
Oh, nice. Well, I'm calm enough. I'm calm enough. I just lack energy right now.
Yeah. I'm going to send off to the Department of Energy and ask for some.
Yes, I've paid enough bills over the years, haven't I? Yeah.
Well, do you know what the Inland Revenue and penguins have got in common? They can both stick their bills up their arse.
Hi, Aunt Sally. How you doing? Hi, Aunt Sally.
And thank you very much for joining us tonight, Ben. And
you're welcome.
You must come on. Actually, there's long pauses. It's surprising, but we're both very, very busy. That's the thing.
Yeah.
But I've sent you what the latest was, Dave, so we might be able to
schedule.
Yeah.
Well, let me know if there's a space. If someone cancels, I'll fill in for them.
Well, there's a space coming up on the 19th, Monday 19th, but we'll work something out. Well, we're both a bit more wide awake,
Right. Oh, right. And that's only 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I think Chris
the Guy will
come because Josie will be on this Sunday. She was a homeopath, but I think she might be talking about something else. So not homeopathy. And then the Monday, we've got next Monday. I think it's Chris the Gardener, but it's pending what you're going to talk about.
We did some shows with him. Yeah.
You might want to come on with Chris.
Well, I'm happy to talk to Chris. Yeah, we had a good.
That'd be good.
Trilog, didn't we?
12th of August. But I've just got subject pending. He said, "Oh, should you? I'd like to come on." I said, "Yeah, I can book you in." Is it a book, Chris? She said, "Yeah, it's booked." I said, "But what are you going to talk about?" So I don't know. So we could sort of just
Yeah.
Who knows? You
Well,
know,
we tend to, like we have this evening, we've kind of like ad-libbed quite a lot of it, haven't we?
yeah. Or
And
could
we
you have an
got off
ambiguous?
topic.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that seems to work okay.
Well, like I did Flobberdob the other week. What's Flobberdob? It's comes from Bill and Ben the Flower Pot.
Oh,
Oh, Flobberdob. So there we go. Anyway, thanks for joining us tonight, Ben. And
oh, you're
what
welcome.
I'd
Thanks for having
normally
me, Chris,
do-
and thanks to everyone who's watched and posted in chat. And thanks very much. I'll see you again soon, I hope.
Thanks, Ben. Yeah, I usually waffle about this because I've always lost. Oh, it is. Got the outro there. So thanks for joining us. And remember, whatever happens, have a bloody good laugh. And I'll see you back. You can probably hear. I'm sometimes on Thursdays as a guest on the Radio Soapbox, and I'll be back on Sunday with Josie, and Monday maybe with Ben. Maybe, you never know. Thank you very much, and good night.